All right, good morning. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. My name is Ricky Prota. I'm Head of Business Services at SDS, and I'm joined by my colleague, Paul Christensen, who's been working closely with Welsh clients for about 20 years. Paul, I believe about 20 or 30 years. We are both delighted to welcome you to this webinar today. I'm going to run through just 3 slides, just as a way of introduction. Please bear with me. I'll try my best not to be a PowerPoint hypnotist. A quick overview of who we are. We're proud to represent Shelton Development Services, or SDS. We're a company dedicated to providing innovative solutions for the social housing sector across the UK. Our mission is to provide local authorities, housing associations, and private developers with the tools they need to make informed strategic decisions when taking on new projects. Our suite of products, LandVal, SQL, and the focus of today's webinar, ProVal, are designed to manage risk, enhance accuracy, and ultimately drive successful outcomes for housing development teams. Today we are particularly excited to demonstrate ProVal. It's our development appraisal tool. We all know that accurate appraisals are crucial for housing associations, especially in this climate, and ProVal ensures that strategic decisions are based on reliable data. ProVal at its core is a sophisticated investment modeler, and through the granular analysis of each unit, its detailed approach ensures that every aspect of your project is suitably examined. This in turn manages risk and contributes to efficient decision making. ProVal helps organizations ensure that their projects are not only viable, but also sustainable for the long term. We feel that this outcome supports the creation of more affordable housing, which delivers on the social objectives of all housing associations and local authorities looking to provide housing. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about Wales and why it's such an important place for SDS. We are proud to support approximately 14 Welsh-based housing organisations, with several more actually reviewing contracts. Wales has a unique and vibrant housing sector with a strong commitment to social housing and community development. This Welsh focus aligns perfectly with our values and the capabilities of our software. We always actually host an annual user group meeting there. I believe this year was at Pobble, at the Newport offices. Looking at those logos, I also haven't included Ty Terrian, who recently joined us over the summer. But in summary, ProVal supports Welsh housing associations and local authorities in their mission to deliver high quality, affordable housing to their communities. Okay, all right, that is my bit at the beginning. We're going to delve into the features and benefits of ProVal now. We're going to cover how ProVal simplifies the appraisal process, reduces the admin burdens, and the manual data entry, and all the errors associated with spreadsheets. Thank you again for joining us. We wanted to make it an engaging and productive session. I can see cameras are off, but if we have any sort of kind of questions or anything like that, and you want to have a chat with Paul directly, pop something in the Q&A box, or ask questions at the end. I'll hand over now to Paul Christensen, one of our technical consultants. Let's get started. Thank you, Paul. That is me done.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Please don't be shy. Use the Q&A or the chat at the top. Mercia, if you could perhaps just monitor it a little bit for me, please. So the introduction in the team, I am the technical manager, for want of a better description. So my speciality is with ProVal and with SQL, our project management tool. I've been involved, as Ricky says, since forever. Actually, I joined the company in 2007 on a permanent basis, and I was actually working 2 days a week for 2006. I was involved in this version of ProVal that you are seeing now. We started off 30 years ago with an Excel-based version of ProVal, and as the market changed and people demanded more versatility, and Excel was just not suitable or big enough or powerful enough to actually do what we need to do. And I'll demonstrate some of that power there for you. If there's anything particular you wish to ask about or would like to see, then please do either use the chat or the Q&A, and I hope to cover it as we go. There's no such thing as a silly question, so please, this is the session is primarily for you guys to get familiar and see what we do, and let's just jump into it straight away. So the ProVal I've got here at the moment, it can have a configuration set for tweaked for Wales in particular, and I'll demonstrate some of that as I go. I'm not and don't have your parameters, so I'm just using general parameters and assumptions. Obviously, each organization has a set of assumptions set aside specifically for them, and the software can be configured by that. When you purchase the software, it comes in as much as the training that starts off with is administration training. In other words, we help you set up the backroom of the software so that when you have a user day, everything is set in place. So we're going to assume that we've done all of that, and we're going to use the software on a day-by-day basis. In other words, some of the backroom work has already been done. There are different ways of doing things when you start appraisal. So I'm actually going to create an appraisal, and we'll just work our way through it, and that'll give you an idea of how things go. At the end of the appraisal, when we finished, and if we're happy with the results we're going to get, we would then get some output like reports to give to management, housing management. There's always somebody asking for some kind of information. Okay, so when I come into the software, I can literally just, if I wish, just click on I want to create a new appraisal. I click on where it says new standard template. I need to just give it my project and name. So on the left hand side here we have a tree structure that allows me to save an appraisal with a particular name. And what are we going to call this? We're going to call this the Wales New Village. Let's just call it that. And I normally give my things a version number because you're going to end up quite often with more than one version of a particular appraisal. So in the normal course of business, I would expect a feasibility appraisal to be done. I would then perhaps expect, okay, we've now going to, this works for us. We're going to flesh it out and go back a little bit on ourselves and do a more detailed approach. So this is by far the most common way of using it. So I've just given my project a name, and it opens up in what we call the wizard mode. I actually don't like that word, but that's what our marketing people stuck us with a long time ago, and I'm looking at Ricky a little bit here. So the wizard mode, I like this as a quick start section. So the quick start section is asking me for a few bits and pieces. Now I am from a Welsh family, believe it or not. I'm sure you don't recognize that from my accent. And I'm going to use the postcode where my mother used to live. So when I use, now if I click on all the local authorities, I think it should be here. So Vale of Glamorgan. Okay. I'm going to go to my expenses. I have no idea what it's going to cost me at the moment, but this is my land price. So I think I'm going to pay £10,000 per unit for land. And I have no idea at this stage how much it's going to cost to build, but I'm going to go with £3,000 a square meters, which is maybe a little bit on the rich side for certain parts of Wales, but certainly in some, this varies so much. I work with London organisations, and they would be putting in the best part of £4,500 to £5,000 a square meter for London, but that's extreme. 3 to 3.5 is sort of normal. So I'm just going to use normal sort of numbers. That might be a little bit too expensive for some of the areas in Wales, perhaps, I don't know, but bricks and mortar cost pretty much the same no matter where you buy them across the country. I think at this stage of the game, I'm going to use a percentile for fees. I think I'm going to use 10% of acquisition and works for my on costs or fees, as we call them. And I want to set aside some money for my works contract, about 2.5% of my works contract as a contingency. I now go to dwellings, and in my library of units, and these come from inside the tree structure, I've got defaults and I've got unit types, and in my unit types I've got general needs ones, and I've got intermediate rent ones, and I've got some outright sale ones. So these are set up by your administration team, and the more you have, the more we'll list. So effectively what the program does, when it opens up in the quick start mode, it enumerates all of these that are inside the defaults in here. So I'll just close the tree down. We don't need it right now. Do I need the summary right now? Or maybe I don't need the summary right now. I want to have a little bit more screen space, or screen real estate as they call it in the IT infrastructure. So are we going to build some flats? Yes, let's build some flats. We're going to build 5 of those. And let's do 5 2-beds as well. And maybe there's going to be some 2-bed houses amongst all of this. I'm hoping that we're going to have more houses than flats. And we are probably going to have an outlier of some 3-bed houses, maybe 4 of those. And the sequence that I'm putting these in will be the sequence that we will see in a minute. Do we have anything if intermediate and outright sale? There's probably not something you do. Intermediate rent, maybe we're going to have a couple of those. And we've got some small intermediate ones. And we're going to put in 2 of those, and I'll show you why I've done that in a minute. Okay. So we're going to now try and put in some income for this. So this is, remember, this is the quick start. I've got these 4 tabs. When I actually go into the appraisal, these 4 tabs will disappear and we won't be able to get back to them. We literally, it's just to give you a startup position. And are we going to get some money from the Welsh government? Maybe let's see if we need any right now. But that would be our approach. And a 1-bedroom flat, probably around about £85 a week. And a 2-bed flat, somewhere around about £95 a week. And so please do shout up. I see there's something in the Q&A. It's Ricky. Okay, and let's do £110 of, whoop, let me go back here, 110. And I'm just putting in what I think is a reasonable amount, £190 a week. And the intermediate rent, oh, don't know what that's going to give me. It's a 2-bed 3 house. It's going to be somewhere probably around the 2-bed 4. So let's do 105, perhaps. Remember, this would need to be set up for each of you in your organizations ahead of time during the administration days. Right, I finished that. I'm now going to go straight into the appraisal. Going to start. Whilst I'm doing all of this, the summary, in actual fact, in the background is filling out. But it's not going to give me a very sensible answer when I haven't actually filled in everything. So we do have some compulsory fields that have to be filled in, and anything that's in pink would be a compulsory field. And in actual fact, down at the bottom here, in errors, it will show down there that I haven't filled in some of the compulsory questions. So at the bottom here, we have a little pane, a little window pane. So I've got the summary panel, the appraisal panel, and I've also got the errors and warnings panel at the bottom. So it's complaining I haven't set the current market value. Okay, these are rented units basically, but it's still required. So when are we going to start getting, when are we going to start spending money? We're going to start spending money in the 24-25 year. And what's our money, long-term money going to cost us? So in my template, I picked up that my long-term borrowing is going to be 5.4%, and we are using cross-subsidy. I'll explain the cross-subsidy in a minute. And we are going to use the overdraft method. So the overdraft method of looking at a loan is I'm going to use all the money within the project to pay for the loan. How long will it take? So think of a repayment mortgage without a term. The software will tell you the term. So this is by far the most used loan type. We have annuity and we have other things where you've got fixed terms. They have their own issues that go with them. By far the best way of looking at it is I'm going to use all the money available within the project. How long does it take? And the software will resolve that for me and tell me when this loan will be repaid. And as long as it fits within our organization assumptions, then I know that the project will pay for itself over that time frame, and then I can see things like NPV and IRR as we go. Okay, so that's the long-term loans. The site address gives me a BRMA. So all of you will be aware of local housing allowance. If I put in a postcode, it will do a lookup for the broad rental market area so that when we get to the rental section, it will have automatically filled in for me the local housing allowance. I don't need to go and find out what it is. ProVal has an online database that we update every quarter, and it will in actual fact have updated that. Occasionally we get caught out because a update has happened that we are not aware of. So around April time, we would have looked when the announcements are going to happen, and it wouldn't be the first time we've not managed to finish doing the updates by the 1st of April, and then the phone starts ringing. So if you find that the local housing allowance is not what you expect, then please just drop us a note and we'll sort that out. It might be just an update hasn't happened. It's done in the background. It's not in ProVal. So it's the same for everybody that uses ProVal. Okay. Section A is about units. So at the top we have sections within the program. So I've got units, capital costs, subsidies, development cash flow, long-term, short-term. This is my total scheme cost area, and you'll soon get used to it. The appraisal stops at J. We have a section D and a section J on the single cash flow model, which is what you will get if you decide to go ahead with it. Section D and section J are identical. We used to have a dual cash flow system where the short-term cash flow, the development part, was a separate cash flow. Hence, and ProVal can still open the old appraisals. So there are some that of organizations that have moved across the single. Well, most have moved across the single. I think we've got a handful left. I'm not quite sure how many we have using ProVal. More than 230 odd organizations I think we're using. I'm sure Ricky and Mercy will give you the exact numbers as things progress on that. So if I now go to, so the way you use the appraisal is, I'm going to go to section A, I'm going to go down the list. When I get to the bottom, I'm then going to go to B and go down the list. So that's the method of filling things in. It's quite linear and straightforward. So these are the units we created in the quick start. So there they are coming in. I've got my units set up in the system with national space standards. If this intermediate house is going to be, and this is what I had planned on, and my intermediate house in actual fact is a 2-bed, 3-person house, I'm going to call this a bungalow. And I'm also going to have it as a wheelchair unit. I've got 2 wheelchair units. And of course, that's going to need some extra floor area. So we're going to go up to 85 square meters. And it's now warning me that I've changed the value from 7. So in the warnings, it will add a warning in that I've deviated from the default position. But whilst I'm in there, I can go to user comments and say, this is a wheelchair unit and needs extra floor area. So I've made my own comment. I'm going to end up with a little blue comment marker on that square meterage. So the next person who follows me knows, hang on a moment, there's a comment in there. I can either hover over the comment, or when I'm actually selected it, I can go to user comments and see, as you can see, I wasn't employed for my typing skills. And there it is. About 95% of the questions within ProVal can have user commentary on it. It's really useful, even if it's only for yourself, as to why did you make that decision, because that decision looks a little bit strange to what we had originally. Obviously, you can tweak these as well. This was actually 51.5. Would they all be 51.5? The whole idea on a feasibility appraisal is to try and keep the number of columns as short or as few as possible. Why do I say that? Well, I would like the software to respond as quickly as possible, because under the bonnet, we in actual fact have a 100-year cash flow for every one of these columns. We have a 100-year cash flow for every one of the 10 years, and we have a 100-year cash flow for the appraisal itself. The 100-year cash flow is made up of about 3,500 elements. So you can understand I've got 5 of those, 1, 5, 6, 7, 8 cash flow that I'm running. This makes us a little bit unique in the market, because our competitors that I've seen don't do cash flows at unit level. So you can't compare one unit with another. So one of the biggest strengths that we have, or unique selling policy for we doing our sales speak, is I can actually look at the mix that I'm I'm modeling, and oh, hang on a moment, that one doesn't bring me so much money as the other one, so maybe I should change the mix. So right from the get-go, you can start to analyze your project. Is before you get an architect to do drawing, try and find out what units give you the most money or bang for your buck, and you can now tweak that accordingly. Then you go back to the architect and say, please, architect, will you fit on this plot of land 50 units or whatever it is that you're trying to do, but I'd like you to concentrate on 2-bed units because they bring us the most cash. Obviously, you've got other pulls on that kind of environment because you've got planning issues, you've got housing issues and all that sort of thing. ProVal is a financial tool. It doesn't worry about those. So it will just give you the story and then you can decide what you want to do. Okay, so the rule is I need to open up each of the triangles or each of the subsections and go down through the list. Now I have no idea what a 1-bedroom flat is going to be. 2-bed house, probably around about 200k in Barry, where my family are from. This one, maybe 220k. Do I have to put this in? Strictly speaking, for a rented unit, you don't need a market sales value, but I know that you guys have quite a lot of paperwork from the Welsh government, and they have accepted cost guidance. I know some of that's a bit outdated, and the SVM, it's about efficiency. If I could buy one cheaper than I can build one, why build one? So putting a market value in is what is it worth on the day that it's built. So all the inputs that we put in ProVal is not what it's going to be worth. Might be the same as values today because that would be the right thing to do. But in actual fact, if this project hands over in 2 years' time or 3 years' time, what would be the expect of that unit at the time? So when you are using ProVal, the inputs are based upon what is it going to be when the unit's finished or completed. In other words, it's been handed over. I'm just going to go down and I'm going to go, let's go 180 on this one. 180, I can use the letter K for thousands. And if you use the letter M, you're into the realms of London. So a much, much bigger number, obviously. Let's go 175. Okay. So forgive me if I don't get this 100% right. If I've 2-bed price is worth 200k, and this is a specialist one, so I'm going to go with that as well. In our Welsh database, we have created a extra question, current market value before discount. In other words, if we had to put our accepting cost guidance in, we would probably put the AOG, the ACGs in there, but we'd put in the market price in here, so you could see the difference between them. This question here, it says offset from first handover. I didn't go to the milestones, and I should have done that first. So in the start section, in the milestones, when are we going to start building on our project? When are we going to finish building on our project? And what are we going to do going forward? So the milestone section is, a milestone is literally a label with a date attached to it. Everything is a derivative of cash flow start. Actually, we need to wait for planning. Okay, so I can put a planning milestone in. Planning approval. And that would help if I could type that properly. And I'm going to give it my own abbreviation, and I like the word the PA, and that's going to happen after cash flow start. So each one of these milestones has its own abbreviation, and then I can have so many months. So if we said it's going to take 6 months after cash flow start for planning approval, you can see now it will rearrange itself and say chronologically this is now going to happen then. Well, actually, in fact, I had originally set it to 1 month start on site, 1 month after legal completion. Actually, I want it to be 1 month after planning approval. I won't start on site until I've got planning approval. It's possible that I won't. So if you were going to buy a plot of land, you might say, well, we'll pay a deposit subject to planning. So in other words, I'm going to wait for planning to happen on the legal completion. So that might drive something a little bit differently. We're not going to start on site until we've actually got legal completion. If I just go away from this and come back, it's designed to not zoom around. It's designed to wait until you've actually clicked away from it, which I've done. And now we can actually see I've rearranged the whole milestone. If we had something for sale, we might have a marketing start. If we had, how many milestones can I put in? You can put in as many as you like. I would recommend that you only put in when there's a significant spend happening. There's no need to model every tiny little bit. Remember, this is a modeling tool. It's not a project management tool. We have a piece of software specifically for that. Okay, so if I go back to my so offset from first handover. So my first units are handing over in May 26. Where did they get that from? First handover. So I've said it's going to take 12 months. Actually, maybe we can start to deliver 8 months after start on site. But maybe the flats are going to take a little bit longer. Or would we do the flats first? We might do the flats first. And in actual fact, we're going to say, well, this is going to be 3 months after first handover. And this one's going to be 4 months after first handover. And the wheelchair adaptions might be 5 months after handover. So all of a sudden, we can now see that we've got different handover dates for different unit types. And the handover date means I'm going to get rent and I'm going to the development for that particular. So now if we look at the highest or last of the handover dates is June 26. If we go back to the start section and go back to milestones, it's automatically picked up from my inputs that practical completion, which is the last handover, is going to be 5 months after first handover. So I can manipulate when are these going to be in effect delivered by the developer. Okay. I've done that. There's no leasehold in here. Out of my defaults, it's automatic. If my defaults are set correctly, I don't need to worry about the number of bedrooms, the number of people and things like that, because it's automatically pulled in when I pull the unit in. So when the unit comes from the library, it comes with its assumptions. Might be useful on the wheelchair one. I can see mine's already got something in it. Maybe this is going to be M for wheelchair adaptation. No. It's not M dollar, is it? It's M4. We're not talking about a motorway either. Okay. And if we now go to MPV, so by far the biggest driver in the market for viability is MPV, IRR, and payback year. Those 3 parameters. Now I have no idea what you're using, but in ProVal I have to tell it, well, if I'm going to run an MPV, I need to give it some kind of parameter. So we're going to use a discount rate the same as our borrowing rate, because what's at risk? The borrowing's at risk. And I want to do it for 50 years. From what I remember, this is in your SVM. It's a 50-year MPV. And I can ask the software when to run that MPV from. Normally, you would run it, and if this was blank, it would be unit handover. I just wanted to show you can do it from different times. But effectively, I can only run the MPV once I start to get income. So I need income and expenditure, don't I, to run an MPV successfully. Okay, so that's all been set. And as you can see, different columns, I could have different MPV rates for different tenure types. So as an organization, you can decide on that. This is something that's done at administration level. I don't have any units for sale, but I could possibly, if I've got 10 houses here, I might in actual fact say that the 10 houses are not going to be occupied all at the same time. Although they're handing over at the same time, I might say in actual fact I'm going to occupy them into tranches, and I could split it. So I could right click on here and say duplicate column C, and this is going to be 5 units, and this one's going to be 5 units, and the second group are going to have a occupancy delay of 1 month. So they're handing over at the same time. I'm getting delivery on the same time, but in actual fact it's going to take a month. So what it's going to do is delay the rent. The units still hand over, but I'm not going to get rental. But this area is primarily for dealing with sales. But it has that little one in there. Rent allowances. So these are my deductions. So these are all about organizational assumptions. What are my management fees going to? So there's little triangles in here, and if you have access to them, so all of these questions can be locked away so that people don't have access to them. So if you've got your administration hat on, we could have consistency in our assumptions because we're not allowing people to make changes to them. If you are able to make changes to them, you can open them up and you can make changes to them. Okay, I've got voids and bad debts. Set at 1.5, they get lumped together, and I've got major repairs. So this is about looking after my fabric of the building, and I've got mine set at £900 per unit per annum from year 6, and this one's actually from year 5. That probably should be year 6 because it's the same. So my defaults are not quite perfect, but there you go. And then I'll speak to your administration. I'll look in the mirror and speak to my admin and ask him to sort that out for me. Okay. I can have steps in it. Something we don't recommend. Would you know that in year 2, we're going to have a different rate? And then again in year 4, we're going to have a different rate. So where you see 1 to 100, ProVal can do steps. Just have some sort of idea. Every time I make a step, it's another mathematical calculation that has to be dealt with. All of a sudden, my cash flow, instead of being 3,000 elements, is going to be considerably more. Okay, market value per week. So if you're doing anything that's market related, you could put a market value. You could put that in just as a for instance if you wished. So if I said actually this is probably worth, so you can use this formula bar at the bottom. So if I said to you that the 2-bed 3-person bungalow is probably worth, I don't know, £700 a month, I need the value in weeks. So if I go down here, I can say £700 per month multiplied by 12 and then divided by the number of weeks in the year. So at the start of the appraisal, we fill in the number of weeks per year. So if weeks per year, you can target other questions inside the software. Every one of these questions has a unique name. And as long as you know what the unique name is, you can actually put that in formula. Our outright sale people really love this because when they're doing their feasibility, they could say, well, the expected sale value is £450 per square foot. So they can actually, in fact, put in the sale value as a formula based upon the square meterage and to convert it to feet, multiplied by that multiplier and fill it in for them. So there's lots of excitement about that. And they can use it for different things in different places. The fact that I've got a market rent in there is irrelevant because I'm not using that, and I'll show you that when I get down here for a little bit further. Actually, what date was that? That's actually current month. It's £160.90. So I've identified when that value was. I don't need a market value unless I'm choosing a market value. So down in the bold row, residential rent per week, if I open this, you can see the values. But if I take my mouse and hover over it, this one is set at pounds per week, £105 per week. But if I use the control and say, actually, I want it to be based upon my market rent, and I want it to be 80% of my market rent, like we do in England, I can get it to calculate for me. In the local housing allowance row, I can see that there's a local housing allowance of £153. I could, if I wished, I can want it to be 80% of market, but I don't want it to go above my LHA cap. So I haven't reached the cap, and I know I haven't reached the cap because the cap is £153. So if I go up here and we go back to this and we say, well, in actual fact, there's going to be, let's do something ridiculous, £1,200 a month, you can see now we've reached the cap. And it won't allow the rent to go above the cap. 80% of that market rent, well, 80% of that market rent is higher than the cap, I've told it. So there's lots of different choices in here. So I can go pounds per week, percentage of unsold equity for shared ownership units. I can inflate the market rent. This is a specialist one, 100% of the rent cap. You guys don't use rent cap. You guys don't use target rents. This is an English thing. 100% of LHA. Okay, so let's make it 100% of LHA. And now when I click away from it, it's going to be my LHA. Or you can say as an organization, actually, we don't want to go beyond 85% of the LHA because we want this to be an affordable product. You can set it to that. Okay. Is there any particular questions on this one?
No, you're good, Paul. Just continue as is.
I think we had a, how much did we have in there? 190. Let's do that. So it's a specialist unit. Okay, in the allowance section, and I was in there, there is a thing called the service cost. So the flats have got £522 per unit per annum. This is in effect like an estate charge. So if we fill that in, I want to recover that money. So I can, in the rental section, I can, just below the rent, I can decide, am I going to get my rent cost money back from the tenant? So I've got these tick boxes here that says make the service charges equal the service costs. So it goes up, looks at the annual, divides it by the number of weeks, and said in actual fact that £522 is the equivalent of £10 a week, and it's not included in the rent. Or I could say that is included in the rent. So that all of a sudden, that rent of £85 a week is not all of mine. £10 of it is set aside for the service charge, or in actual fact, it's going to be on top. So in England, we have affordable rent, and the service charge has to be included in the rent. So effectively, you lose the effect of the money. You want to try and keep that as low as possible. So that's the rent section. Right at the very bottom, if you have commercial units, there's a commercial rent as well. So if you have a shop or you're going to do a row of shops with flats on top, then you can sell the flats if you sell the shops if you wish, or you can rent them out. So you can do commercial rent is done per square meter per year or per square foot per year. We have both in there, so it depends on which one you want to fill in, and you can then do that. Could be a community room. You're not getting anything for it, and the community room, of course, is going to have a cost. So it's costing you to build it, but you're not getting any money. You're not recovering any cash for it. But if you are getting some money back, you can sell commercial units. You can rent them. You can part sell them. Depends entirely on how the system has been set up. Okay, we've got to the bottom of section A. We're now going to go to section B. When we go to section B, I've got 4 main sections of capital: acquisition, works, fees, and other. Now you can put what you like in here. We said we think we're going to buy our land at £10,000 per unit. And so when you put a cost in, you have to tell it how you're going to spend the cash. Actually, we're going to do a 10% deposit at exchange of contracts, and we're going to do 90% at legal completion. So that's fine. That's now effectively handled. That 260,000, when am I going to spend it? Okay, the works cost. So we got a build going on. And if I want to, I can set all of the build items to, I'm going to use an S-curve from start on site to practical completion. Set all. Hang on a moment, I got some demolition work part of the contract. So demolition. And it's going to be, I don't know, let's put in 10K. But that's not going to be on an S-curve. I'm going to have that as a different spread. We're going to spend that money. 100% of it, literally, as we start on site. The first thing we're going to do is some demolition. So these cost sections, these capital sections, I can push the plus button. I can do as many as I like. So I could have 10 different things in here, but they all add up to a works cost. And we decided that we were going to go on an assumption of 10% of acquisition of works. That's 10% of those 2 sections total is going to be, and that's 500. Oh, hang on a moment. When are we going to spend this money? Well, typically we're going to spend it throughout the project. So we've created a thing called a declining curve. We've analyzed hundreds of appraisals, and this is pretty much way fees or on costs are spent. From cash flow start, we're going to spend it early, and as the project progresses, we spend less and less money on costs. So it gives me a quick idea. All of this time I'm doing all this, it's actually updating my summary. And if we go to the other section, I've got things like contingency. So mine's already got a spread in it. So this one is 100% at practical completion. I've also got a contingency on fees. So I've got 2.5% on works. And so on the input type, you can tell it what that cost is going to be. And mine has decided to push it all the way to the top of the screen. Let me just going to change the magnification. Hopefully you can see this. Contingency, if I do this, I can now see, well, I'm going to do 100% at practical completion, because I shouldn't actually be spending contingency. I'm just getting sign off on it. If I've got existing units, I might have home loss or rehab or disturbance costs. Actually, I don't have any of those, so I don't need any right now. Or I might have a land agent, and I'm going to pay the land agent a percentage of the acquisition, and I'm going to give them 1.5% of acquisition, and I have to pay them at the same time I get the land signed over to me. So that's going to be at legal completion. We'll do our disbursements and get that done. Okay. This little marker that's come in here is telling me the cash flow is not balanced yet. In other words, it hasn't caught up with itself with what I've just inputted. And it will. Because I've actually spread everything, it will catch up with itself in a minute. So that's section B. Section C is about, am I going to get some subsidy? I did say to you at the beginning, we're going to assume that we don't get subsidy. Do I need subsidy? Well, oh dear, I need what I think is about £4.4 million worth of subsidy to make this project move for me, because the loan is not repaid. It's blank. It's more than 100 years, and I've got no IRR, but it's more than 50%, and our NPV is extremely negative. So I've actually put all my costs in section B, and in section A, we told it how much money we're going to recover from rents. So I think we need some subsidy. And the easiest way to do it is I have two subsidy sections. I can do it on a per column basis if I want to, or I could do it on a grid system, which I think is much easier to understand. I can do it by the total value per unit per person. So let's make a really bold assumption that we're going to get from the Welsh government. Now, please excuse my system. I've actually got it set up for Wales, England, Northern Ireland, and Scotland. So I have all of the different kinds of subsidies that are in there. So forgive me. Yours probably only have something like Welsh government and maybe a couple of the others. But this is something that's set up at the time. So I think we need 4.4. Let's use the letter M. Million. I think we need to make this viable and give us a positive NPV, or close to a positive NPV as we can get, that I think we need to throw some money at it. So the software will now tell me, oh, I need to know when that money is going to come. So if I go to my spread, when am I going to get the cash? Now I know your subsidy certainly in the past was based upon the up to 58% of total scheme cost. I could have gone to section E and looked at the total scheme cost, worked out what 58% is, and typed it in. But I didn't. So I think we're going to get some money early doors. I don't know what you get, 70% at start on site, and let's say the balance at the end. Okay. So that will materially alter it, depending on when I'm getting that income. So based upon the £4.4 million, we've actually got a positive NPV. I probably didn't need 4.4, and we paid in year 40. We're running a 50 year in, and it's gone to 53 because of the split in the cash. So in other words, we need a fraction more if we want it to be, so another 20k. I need to put a 20 in there. I have no idea what your organization's parameters are. So I'm sort of guessing that you would probably want an NPV of 0 or better and payback, let's assume, within the 50-year period. So my NPV is being recalculated. Remember, we have a lot of cash flows. They're being reworked every time I make a change. So we're still 19,000 negative. And we're at year 51. So that 20 probably needs to be 30. Another 10 grand. That's at the beginning, so it's exponentially going to help us. So we've gone to a positive NPV there from what it looks like it, and we need to just recalculate the loan repaid here. This will take care of itself. I'll move on. If I now go to section D, I can look at what we've just created. Let's finish the financials. So I've got a positive NPV. I would like my loan to be repaid by year 51. So how much more do I have to by 50? Sorry. So I want the loan to be repaid inside the NPV structure of 50 years. So there's the cash flow itself. I'm just going to scroll along to year 50 and find out what's left. So there's the loan being paid. In actual fact, my cash flow at the end, at year 50, I need, according to this, 28k, but I think it's about £2,700 because the loan has gone over by that much money. So I can quickly go back and I can 2,700 pounds. Let's go and just adjust one of our costs. So on our acquisition, we said it's going to be £260,000. Let's get a discount on our land of £3,000, so minus 3k. I'm changing my land down by £3,000. Effectively, I'm reducing the costs, and this is going to be in line with our, like this will happen the same as the land purchase. And just quickly do that. So we do that to legal completion of land. Effectively, I've just modeled a £3,000 rebate on the land price. I could have just changed it there, I suppose. But that should now give us what we need. But whilst that's all that's happening, let's go and have a little look. So here's my cash flow. The cash flow has lots of sections in it. We keep them closed. Do I need to look at all the various inputs on it? Oh, possibly not. Okay, but I'd like to look at the capital. So here's my capital line. So we do, everything's done in financial years. At the start of the program, we said my financial year starts in April. Okay, so there's my financial years, even though I'm handing over maybe mid-year. So I can open up a particular year. It gives me quarters. I can open up that quarter. I can see I'm starting to spend cash and I'm starting to spend fees in September 24. So that tells me, without even thinking about it, that my cash flow start must be September 24. So if we go back to the milestones and look at it, milestones, it's in September 24. So that's when we start and spend the first monies. So in that year, in that financial year, I can see what's happening. I can see we're spending some fees. What are we spending the money on? Actually, it was our fees that we said we were going to decline curve from cash flow start to practical completion. So it's calculated on the assumption level. That's what it's going to be on. I can open up each month and I can have a look, see how that goes. And when am I going to start getting my first revenue in my first revenue? So when am I going to start getting my first rentals? My first rent is coming in 25, 26. So that must be when my first handovers are happening. In actual fact, my first rent is hitting the cash flow in January 26. So that's obviously my first handover, as well as everything else. Actually, I got handovers there. We got some delay in rent because we decided that's what we were going to do. So I can drill down and look at lots and lots of things in here. When the capital is closed, that's effectively the cost of capital in that particular month, and revenue. I've only got £101 in there because I haven't got any rent yet. This has gone positive. So if we looked inside here, in when is it there? When it's gone positive in May 25. If we open up revenue, revenue is made up of lots of different things. It's made up of rent, allowances, and interest. So in May 25, when it was closed, I've got 3,000 in there. So I've got some interest in there. So why am I getting some interest in it? Development interest has gone positive. I must have been getting a lot of subsidy at that point in time. So hence the reason why we're getting that. I can change the cash flow to show me the general needs rent. So in other words, I don't want to see the cash flow of the whole appraisal. I want to see just the general needs rent. Now we left cross subsidy switched on. Cross subsidy is done at tenure level. So if a particular tenure has a surplus, in other words, I have to guarantee that I'm going to cover my own costs. In other words, I'm going to make my own, cover my own payments. But if there's something left after that, if cross subsidy is switched on, it will help other tenures pay it off. In other words, I'm going to use all the money within the project. How long will it take? There's my handovers happening. And because I've gone to single tenure, I could now scroll along the cash flow and have a look at, well, am I getting any help? So the cross subsidy is negative here. That means I'm receiving money. Now we've only got 2 tenures in here. So the intermediate rent in actual fact is generating some extra funds and helping my general needs rent, excuse me, pay for itself earlier. We can see the cumulative cash flow position as it's going along, when it's negative, when it's positive, and we can then look at the loan repayments at the bottom. If we go to section I, I'm just going to jump to section I for a moment. This is my long-term results. So there's my 51 years payment. So if I scroll down to the loan part, my payment is in year 51, but in actual fact it's going to 52 because my first cumulative break even is going to be after the loan is being paid for. I would like that to be in line with it. So I need to add some extra cash in. So I've got a cumulative deficit in year 50. I need, in actual fact, 20K at the end. Now 20K at the end is going to be a lot less money here. So can we tweak that? Yeah, let's go. Let's put in another discount of, I don't know, let's go for minus. I'm just going to make it a little bit extravagant on it, more than we need, just to demonstrate that we can see how things are going. So whilst that's calculating, on the long-term results, I can go to unit results. So the unit results are going to give me some sort of idea on a per unit basis, which ones are bringing the most to the table. Now, the NPV is by far your best indicator. Actual fact, we are losing an enormous amount of money on the wheelchair unit. We're losing £134,000 in effect of income based upon cost. So do I want to build the wheelchair units? You might be obliged to do it, but perhaps we can get more rent for it, or maybe we can get more subsidy for it. So hang on a moment, we're building a wheelchair. Could I apply to the Welsh government for a little bit of extra money? So if we go back to our subsidy, and we could ask the Welsh government, because we put it in at total level, it's split that money into, oh, of course I didn't put any in there. Okay, I think we think 134K for the wheelchair unit to bring the NPV in better. We didn't have any subsidy on it, that's why. So that should have improved our NPV on the unit, and that will obviously help contribute to the project as a whole. All of a sudden, we're now paid off in 37 years because we didn't have anywhere near what we needed. We didn't have any subsidy. I hadn't put any in the right place. for the intermediate rented unit. All of a sudden, we don't need quite so much money. So could I take some of this back? Yes, I could now go back to my land and make it a little bit more expensive again. So NPV is a measure in today's value. So for every pound I save today, my NPV will improve today. Obviously, if we're monitoring this over a 50-year period, which we asked it to, it's going to have an exponential effect on it as well. So all of a sudden, things are looking considerably more rosy. We probably could go back and take our land discount out. And that's more than likely going to tip us over the edge again a tiny bit. So I skipped over section E, total scheme cost. So this is about short-term costs. At appraisal level, we can see that the project total is £6.7 million. We've got acquisition, works, fees, and other costs. And we can then look at that from that point of view. I can drill down and say, in actual fact, I want to know my general needs rent or my intermediate rent, or I could say, actually, what is that worth? So that's the short-term stuff. Section G is about inflation. I'll just cover this quickly because I realize we're running over a little bit. In Section G, there's inflation on different things, or we can have a base rate, and then we can have margins on income and expenditure, depending on how we expect things to go. This is all backroom stuff that will be done by your IT team, your admin team. So let's assume we're happy with the project. We've actually paid more for the land. And I now want to run some reports. I want to just ask me where to save it. So I'm just going to save it in my feasibility section and put it in there. So we'll now move it from unfiled into where we asked it to. So the file structure on the left-hand side is the top ones are system folders. Everything else is you can do what you like with it. So you can create a brand new and let's have well, there's our Welsh New Village. So we could actually have a folder called Welsh New Village. Sorry, Wales New Village. I can then place that inside my new folder. And at some point in time, we might want another version of it. So I could right click and duplicate the appraisal. And then I could do one where the fees are now broken down into more detailed position. So I can do that again. Okay, so once I've done that, I now want to tell somebody what's going on. If we right click on an appraisal, we have a whole raft of reports. The ones that are used the most are things like the board approval report. So there's the board approval report. Let me just switch this into browse mode so it comes up nice and big for you. So it's got scheme name, it's got all sorts of things on it. Some organizations have bespoke reports made. They want something in a particular way or particular field order. So the reports can be bespoke for different organizations, cost per unit, financial performance, and so on. Okay, that's fine. I would also like to have a different kind of report. I'd like to have a report on my long-term cash flow. There it is there. Actually, I've got about 3 reports that I run every month. So literally for every project, I have to tell somebody what's going on with it. This character thing at the top is messing me around. Sorry. The joys of remote working. Right. So if I click on the reports, not only do I have all the reports, I can run them individually. I could use the combined position and say, actually, I want the financial summary, I want the long-term cash flow, I want the detailed unit, I want the executive summary, I want that one, and I want the board report as well. So if I now run this report, it's effectively, I get one report made up of several. I can PDF it straight out of the software, or I could save it and then open up in an Excel spreadsheet. So there's lots of different things you can do with it. here ends the lesson. Has anybody got anything that they'd like to see again?
Thank you, Paul. That concludes the session. Apologies for going slightly over time. Yeah, if there are any questions, everyone will be getting a kind of copy of the recording once it's been edited. Yeah, thank you again, Paul, for your time and for taking us through the system. Yeah, everyone have a good day, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.